On our Sunday book feature this morning, we take a look at a book titled Land of My Ancestors by Dr Botlhale Tema, an epic South African story based on true events. This is an offering that tells the story of two young men and their descendants as they build a life for themselves on a Welgeval farm in the Pilanesberg. Mme Botlhale also touches on slavery, colonialism, the Anglo-Boer War, and the rise of apartheid her forefathers endured in pursuit of love, family and land. Let's now bring her in. She's here in studio to tell us more about this read. Mme Botlhale, thank you so much for making the time to be here on the show. It's great to have you. Your book was first published under the title The People of Welgeval, and it's now recently been republished with obviously the new title Land of My Ancestors. Why was that?
First of all, do you know where Welgeval is?
No idea. In the Pilanesberg.
I think first people could not connect to it because a farm is so nobody knew where it was, and also it hid the facts about what I'm writing about. This is a story about the struggles of my family with land and the successful regain of the land with the land restitution process.
There are two people in this book, the two young men that you had discovered had become slaves in the mid-19th century.
Yes.
Tell us about how you'd first encountered them and what you had picked up from their stories and the pain that they'd been going through.
Okay. I was working for the National Commission for UNESCO. Every country has a national commission which is connected to the headquarters in Paris. It's a UN agency. And it had a project called the Slave Route Project, which said that if you compare slavery with the Holocaust, for the history of the Holocaust, not many people actually know about slavery, how it happened, and its impact, especially for us here in South Africa. And indeed, I made a mistake because I was supposed to start a project that would help people who had been affected by descendants of slaves, if I can put it like that, to start socio-economic projects. And like most South Africans would do, when you think of slavery in South Africa, you think it happened only in the Western Cape. And then in the evening, after a meeting with the community and so on, I went to stay with a historian friend of mine, and I said, this is such an ambitious project, this slavery project. I wish I could take the project and implement it where I come from. And she said, what? But don't you know that it also happened where you come from? And she showed me a book, I also have it here, it's called Slavery in South Africa by Fred Morton, and she showed me a particular chapter that refers to Welgeval. And again, I was shocked. That's my home, that's where I grew up. How do you get to know that? And then with research, I found that, further research with the book and other sections of the book, I discovered that there was a practice after the abolition of slavery in the rest of the country. There was a practice where there was clandestine slavery taking place in the Transvaal, but it didn't affect adults. They used to abduct young people, children in fact, and even as young as 4 years of old age, and they took them down. And when you take a child, they take a child down a certain distance. They just get disoriented, and they depend on the person who they are with. And I discovered that, first of all, we've always been surprised how my great-grandparents and grandparents spoke Afrikaans all the time. He said, well, how is that?
And just going back to Welgeval to conduct this research, who are some of the main people that you spoke to, had conversations with, to reveal some of the things that maybe perhaps you as a little girl may have missed or may have not considered to have been of great importance?
First of all, my great-grandparents and ancestors, okay, I couldn't speak to them, but they wouldn't talk about it. But we started interviewing our family just about issues like, why do you speak Afrikaans, and so on and so on. And all they could say is that we grew up in Boer farms. And then as we tracked it down, we found that they came down here when they were still very young. And they literally they got acculturized to the African culture.
And what would you say are some of the perhaps most shocking or interesting things that you uncovered just about your identity as you sought to flip back and look back at what your ancestors had gone through?
Okay. The one thing that if you sitting here in high-heeled shoes suddenly discover that you are a descendant of a slave, I knew nothing about it. Our parents protected us from that knowledge. And I got it, like I said, this way. And I considered who I was at the time, healthy-minded and doing well in a job and so on and so on. My first question was, how did it come about? And as I now talk to people, to my relatives, I discovered that for my family, they decided to reinvent themselves. They were outsiders. I mean, the villagers outside could see that they were different, but they decided to improve their image, and they took on education as the one way that would change their image and change that trajectory. And I studied. My grandfather was a qualified dominee of the Dutch Reformed Church.
Mme Botlhale, that's where we'll have to leave it because we are out of time. But I do encourage everybody to go get this book because you also talk about the hot issues of land dispossession.
Of course, we won our land claim. That's important.
Congratulations to you
Yes.
and your family. That was Mme Botlhale Tema, and she's been speaking to us about her recently republished book now titled Land of My Ancestors, an epic South African story based on true events. You can also join us